Hi everyone. I have the honor and privilege to sit down with Mark Ryan here to my side. And those of you who've been watching some of the videos that we've done on the farm boxes from Riba Farms, well, now you're going to get a face to who's producing that food for you. So Mark is the owner and the farmer at Riba Farms. And so we're going to sit down for about 20 minutes or so and talk a little bit about what he does and regenerative farming, and hopefully it'll be entertaining and you'll learn something from it. So,
Sounds great.
welcome, Mark.
Welcome, everyone.
All right. So, well, Mark, tell us a little bit about how you got started. What I'll let everyone know is that what I know is that you weren't raised on a farm, you weren't raised a
No.
farmer, so you came to farming later in your adult life. So tell us a little bit about how you got in the farm.
Actually, what got me started was poor health. I was working as a contractor, a broadband contractor, and we had the company for 14 years and decided that it was time to get out. I was overweight. I got really into wheatgrass, juicing wheatgrass, and I couldn't find any place local where I could find wheatgrass, so I decided to grow it. Had a greenhouse in the back of our old building in Chandler, and we quickly found out why you can't grow wheatgrass in the desert. So, but just out of luck, we got picked up by Whole Foods. We started growing wheatgrass for them. Then a couple of distributors found us, and we ended up selling the broadband company right before the big crash, and started getting into farming and growing food. My ex-partner hated the farming side of it. It wasn't really a big money maker for us, but I fell in love with it. It was, to me, serving people it's kind of like I found my purpose in life.
That's fantastic. And in fact, you guys still do grow wheatgrass, correct?
Oh yeah, we're a very large wheatgrass grower. Currently, we're supplying all of the Safeway Albertsons in Arizona and Nevada.
Okay, wow, that's massive. And so for all of you, we'll talk about this, but that's on top of all of the other stuff that's
Correct.
grown on the farm here. So, okay, so Riba Farms. So this is not a huge place, right? Tell us a little
No.
bit about Riba Farms.
Yeah, the farm is actually pretty small. It's only 3.3 acres. It's the style of farming now that I've fallen into is called regenerative agriculture. In the beginning, we started indoors with microgreens, and then I went into what was called aquaponics, which was a fish system where we would raise fish and then grow vegetables in water. And then I got really entrenched into start growing in soil and discovered that the Arizona soil is very, very dynamic. It's full of minerals. Even though it's sunburnt and it's rock hard, once you learn how to deal with it, we've got sun so much during the year that we can really take advantage and grow well. Arizona is a huge agricultural state, and we've got a lot of great things here, and we've got a lot of people too. But for us, our little farm, it's out in Santan Valley, and working the soil. Most of the small farmers, people think number one that their biggest problem is water, and it's not really water, it's planning and zoning. Most cities and counties and HOAs for certain don't like you growing a whole bunch of food in your yard, and they hate the notion of you trying to make a business out of it. So big agriculture is a huge ordeal. And for me, it was, if I'm going to do this, I want to grow clean food, pesticide, herbicide, fungicide free, and nutrient dense. So how do I learn how to do that? And I'm kind of a bookworm, so I did a lot of reading, and then mostly lots and lots of experimenting and what grows well in the desert. And I grow food now that I'd never even heard of 5 years ago. And that is kind of the path we've been on. And the small secret of our success is innovation. We have to keep taking left and right hand turns and finding people like you that realize that what we feed ourselves is how we live good lives. Without a proper diet and without exercise and sleep and decent food, how poorly we live and manifestation. I mean, if you believe you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick, and if you don't, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the power of your mind and meet social media and TV and everything else that's going on. And with the pandemic, granted we lost a ton of restaurant business, but people started to realize all of a sudden, holy cow, if we don't take care of ourselves, well, this could really hurt. I mean,
absolutely, our survival may actually depend on it, right?
It's crazy, but and so it's been an education, for a lot of people. Most people wouldn't even recognize a potato in the ground, or they don't know what it looks like. They become very, very disconnected with our food source, and
Absolutely.
if you don't have the inertia or the will to do it yourself, we'll do it for you. Our little farm, we could easily feed 30 or 40 people year round without a blink of an eye.
On 3.3 acres.
Yeah, a lot of people believe you got to have a whole bunch of acreage to grow a lot of food. You don't. You've got to plan. You've got to plant a lot of trees you've got to think seasonably. So, and it's a race against the bugs, because we're going to have a lot of insects if you're not using any pesticides or herbicides. Now we have super bugs from the guys that are using the pesticides and herbicides, which are even more of a challenge. But the symbiotic relationship with the earth and Mother Nature, growing food really isn't that hard. As long as you've got half a clue, you can do it. And once you start building those little tiny successes of yourself, you'll want to do more and more and more. And even finding children that will eat vegetables that had no idea that's what it really tasted like, or that whole discovery of mushrooms. We do a lot of indoor mushroom growing. Mushrooms are a fungus like this, phenomenal, healthy. It could feed us for 1,000 years
Mm-hmm.
if we just learned how to do it properly.
Wow. So there's a lot there. So let's talk about this. So back to the smallness of the farm. So for those of you who haven't gotten a box yet, one thing that you'll really notice is that there's a lot of variety. We're going to open today's box in a minute, but there's a lot of variety in each box, at least certainly this time of year where more stuff is able to grow. So I guess my question is, how is that possible? How on a 3.3 acre farm, you said planning, but I think, and then you mentioned something about symbiotic relationships, but what is I know there are advantages to actually having a biodiverse farms. It's both a benefit and it's also part of the process. It's how you're able to be successful without, herbicides and fungicides and pesticides and synthetic fertilizers and whatnot. So tell us a little bit about this interaction between biodiversity, meaning growing lots of different species, even on this tiny little farm, and how that benefits.
Yeah, currently our list is somewhere around 180 different types of plants.
Oh my gosh.
And that's everything from indoor and outdoor, and your tree crops. Also our animals, we raise sheep and we raise chickens and ducks. So with all of that going on at the same time, labor is a huge expense for us. When I first started with the regenerative thinking, I was just using chickens and ducks to help us take down the fields. After we have a setup for our fields, we build our own compost, we do our own compost teas, but there's huge labor in switching fields around. Once the field has gone to seed, we'll leave about 25% of the best plants in that field. They will not get harvested. We'll let those go to harvest so we can grab that seed for next season. You always want to take the biggest and the baddest and the strongest, not the weak guys. You don't need to save that seed. So we'll let those go, and then you don't have to save, thousands of pounds of seed for the next season. Nature provides huge amounts. So, and that's the process we follow. So each garden has once it's been seeded, sown, and then the irrigation that we use, we'll harvest that field, and then we'll pull the seed for the bees. We also have bees and honey. And then we'll fence it in, and we'll put the animals on the field. The animals will eat the field down, They'll do their fertilizing. With chickens and ducks, I found it took way too long. I needed to get that field back in operation quicker. So then I went to goats. Goats are really cute. Had a lot of fun with goats, but they ate all of the irrigation. So I had to put in all brand new irrigation. Then we went to pigs and did baby pigs, and pigs were really cool. But once they get to be in about 50 pounds, they would not respect the fences. They would just bull right through, and they would go eat the good stuff, and that was really became a hassle. And then I have a friend, a farming friend that gave us their sheep, and the sheep were really great. And they would mind us. They would clean the gardens beautifully, and we could maintain them. And they would break out every now and then, but that's just life. So
yeah, life on the farm.
So yeah, so we just moved the sheep around, and it's very inexpensive labor for me, and they could do probably 40 or 60 man hours easily in a week. And mowing that field down, and then we would go back in and get it ready to flip it.
And so what a lot of people may not realize is that with regenerative farming specifically, and I'm going to ask you a question in a minute about what makes it different than organic in general. So clearly regenerative agriculture is generally organic, but all organic is not regenerative.
That's true.
And so I'm going to ask you to talk about that, and also just this idea of the animals are part of it, because in regenerative farming, the animals are actually an essential piece of the operation. They really serve a vital function. And so you gave us some insight that they help kind of eat down the old fields to get them ready for planting, and then they also
same with the bugs
and they
their manure.
fertilize.
Yep, everything. Right? The organic certification is really a marketing cert. In its beginning, or in its origin, it had a lot of merit, and it was a very difficult cert to get. Now it's been watered down tremendously. And for a farmer, which most people don't know, I am organically certified in the microgreens side of my farm, but I actually have to pay on my gross sales. So it's like a tax in order to use that little label that says it's organic. So most people that I have found as a small farmer, we have personal relationships with our customers, and that means the world to them. Granted, if you're out of town and you're shopping at a grocery store and you see the organic label, you feel a little bit safer about consuming that food. But on a regular day-to-day basis, if you have a farmer or people that are growing, and you get to see what they do and how they do it, and that's what you're trusting with your body. To me, I'm very humbled that people will put my food in their mouths, and we have a flock of cancer patients that follow us because they've taken that left turn away from Western medicine. They're not doing the chemo, they're on pretty much borrowed time, but they are eating pure and clean, but they can't find that food in a grocery store.
Right.
Everything you get from us was harvested. This box was harvested yesterday. And that's why when you go home and you unpack it, it's going to be good in your fridge for like 2 weeks.
Right.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It's just
it lasts so much longer than
you're in shock
produce.
Because you've got food that lasts longer than a week in your fridge.
Right, absolutely. I can verify that without question.
And so many people are just, well, the box is too big, or now we've got, I don't know what to do with all the vegetables, and that's why we started Riva Recipes.
Right, which everyone keep an eye out, because Mark just turned us on to Riva Recipes, and we're going to be turning you on to Riva Recipes, and hopefully be adding some recipes of our own to Riva Recipes.
Hashtag Riva Recipes on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay, perfect. And that way, if you decide to go ahead and get a box, which we hope you do, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of how do I use all of this produce. And some of it is we're gonna open the box. Some of it's pretty straightforward, but there's also a lot of varieties that Mark grows on the farm that we're all not necessarily familiar with, and so you just have to learn how to use something new. So I'm sure Riva Recipe is going to be really helpful for that.
Yeah. And it's so much fun to start cooking again. Be creative. Let your mind wander. I mean, so many people like frying salad greens. They would have no idea that they could do that, or just there's so many different crazy recipes out there, and it's great food.
That's fantastic. So a couple things you said. So like with the cancer patients, they're having trouble buying, sort of clean food, healthy food in the grocery store. So tell us just a few things that make, getting a farm box from Riva Farms in terms of the quality of the food different than, going even into your grocery store, even and buying the USDA organic stuff in your grocery store.
Right.
What's different
Well, time
about
and transportation are the first thing that you really got to think your way through. If you're looking at a grocery store food, just imagine how many thousands of miles that the food has traveled to get there, especially if you're buying a kiwi or something out of Chile. Or right now, I mean, I see watermelons in the grocery store, and if you understand how long it takes to grow a watermelon, it's 88 days. And then you got to think, okay, where did they put this in the ground? And a watermelon needs a minimum of 12 hours of daylight to even begin to think about blooming. Now you're understanding that this watermelon is probably coming from someplace on the other side of the equator, because it hasn't been like that around here. So if that watermelon, sure, it might be only $3, and then how could it only be $3 and be 3 weeks old? If you buy a watermelon from us, it'll be harvested yesterday. So it completely, but then
and only at the time of year where you have enough sunlight.
huge discipline, learning how to eat seasonably. Advertising has done a great job to create this need or the trigger that, I want to eat whatever I want, whenever I want.
Right.
Where, our grandparents, they ate seasonably. If that's not in season, you just don't eat watermelons in the middle of winter.
Right.
You just don't do it.
And little by little, the science, I think, is at least beginning to emerge that there's something to seasonal eating, and also that there's something to local eating. I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done, but there's suggestions that these are things that are kind of built into us evolutionarily, and that we actually are healthier, perhaps, when we eat seasonally and we eat locally. And certainly when we seasonally, we're likely to be eating fresher produce, so likely to be more nutrient dense, but we're also much more likely to be eating a broader variety of foods throughout the year, because if not, we end up eating the same dozen foods,
over and
over again all year long,
and
as opposed to
huge comfort zone there.
Exactly.
Comfort food.
So
wintertime, heavy starches, foods that, and learning how to preserve your own food. Again, a lost art. Very few people can anymore. They don't. If you've got a local farmer and you can buy 2 or 3 cases of apples, and you want to cut up and make preserves, or you want to can your apples or freeze your apples and turnovers and stuff like that, and roll them out in the dead middle of winter, that's really fun, and it saves money. I mean, it's logical thinking.
Right. And then we don't waste food in
and we don't waste. 40% of everything sold out of grocery stores is thrown away in America. 40%.
Horrendous.
Doctor, that's a huge.
No, it's a huge number.
Waste of.
And then we have people who are hungry.
Yeah.
So
starving
think we have people that are starving,
and we also have
40%.
laws in place that won't allow us to give those people free food either.
Right.
Which is another.
Yeah, just another limitation to
Where's the common sense?
Well, clearly there isn't any common sense.
It's like, what?
It's
What
not
do you mean
common
I can't
sense.
feed a hungry person. It's like, I can't give them water. What?
So we have the benefits of eating seasonally. There's also the benefits of eating locally, which they go a little bit together. But there are some suggestions out there that I've read that has something to do with the microbes, meaning that and I'm gonna get you to talk about that here in a minute. But the microbes are in the soil. At least if it's healthy soil, it should be packed with microbes, and then the microbes play an essential role, which I'll let Mark talk about. But the thing about eating locally is that then they're local microbes. They're the microbes, meaning the bacteria and the fungi and whatnot, even the viruses, etc., that are local and native to our area, and then we're sort of inoculating our bodies with
nature.
these local
It's nature's
microbes.
vaccines.
Absolutely.
Valley fever, first thing comes to mind. It's another. When I moved here in '88, and valley fever was huge at that time. I didn't get sick with it, but heck, I knew a lot of people that did. There's so many people that move here from out of state. And it was, horses were getting it, but it's perfect. If you ever get a chance to take one of our tours, you'll hear me say, we don't feed the plants, we feed the soil. And because a living soil is going to give us living plants. And it's all because of the microbial life that's in the ground. And there is so much going on underneath our footsteps that we wouldn't even know, that we're not connected to. Grounding is another extremely great way to heal yourself if you ever get into doing that type of reading for the spirituality side of it.
Right.
And
Which
most
grounding for all of you is simply actually walking or lying on the earth with your skin, whether that's the bottoms of your unshoed feet or, laying your body down directly on the ground and connecting with the electromagnetic energy that the earth emits.
correct, without no plastic, no rubber.
Right.
I don't know if leather is all right. I would have to look at that one. But again, it's getting your hands dirty, getting in the soil, playing with it, and then you feed the soil. The healthier our soil is, the healthier your food's going to be. And then remember I mentioned the bug game.
Yep.
The bugs will leave good food alone. They are there. They're nature's garbage men. They're there to take out the trash. So if you've got sick plants, the bugs are coming. If you've got unhealthy plants, the bugs are coming. If you fertilize with chemical fertilizers or petrochemical fertilizers and you got a ton of bugs, the bugs are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but you're not growing the food properly.
And so
the bugs will leave.
So a huge part then of not having to use pesticides in this case is healthy soil and therefore healthy plants, which
Correct.
minimizes the insect burden, correct?
Very much so. And in America we have this thing about yields. We want big giant yields, or we want big gulps. We want big this, big that. You'll find when you're eating healthy food, you don't need the same quantities.
Correct.
It's so different.
And because
it's like, wow, how come I'm full? I mean, I don't need that.
And it's because that same food has more nutrients
Right.
in it, right? And
takes care of the urge.
I read
It's dead food.
It's dead food, and I read some time ago that with comparing regenerative agricultural yields to conventional agricultural yields, so the regenerative agriculture actually did quite good, but not quite as good in terms of just actual like bushels per
Right.
acre. But when they looked at it in terms of nutrients per acre, it blew away
Completely different.
conventional agriculture. So we may be producing a little bit less food, but we're actually producing far, far more nutrients, probably many times depending on the number of nutrients. In the end, we need the nutrients, right? Our bodies need the nutrients to be healthy, and sure, they need the calories, so there needs to be enough substance.
Oh, absolutely.
But we need the nutrients, and what you find, and I can attest to this just since we've been getting the farm boxes, or from even my own garden, when the food is more nutrient dense, you feel full sooner. Your body actually realizes, okay, we got what we need. You don't need to eat anymore, which means that you're getting the nutrients you need on fewer calories, which is probably good for the waistline and our general health and everything else.
Yeah, completely. Just the earth is one big giant recycling machine. And when you, like in a regenerative agriculture, you need to recycle you're running your animals through. If you look at like a CAFO, a confined animal feedlot, where they've got 10,000 cows that are parked in 10 acres getting ready for slaughter, and they're sitting in that horrible, nasty, the earth can't recycle that
Right.
that waste, and then the animals are fed or get all kinds of vaccinations because they're constantly getting sick, or the chickens that are raised in the giant chicken houses, even the simple chicken egg, a free range chicken egg, if you go and take it to a lab and go get a grocery store one, not only do they look completely different, but if you look at the lab reports on the difference between the two eggs, it's phenomenal. And
Right.
because they haven't been fed all the shit
Absolutely.
from
Well, and the adage is, right, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that that's just as true of our animals as it is of us, and it's actually just as true of the plants as it is of us. So if the plants are sitting in healthy soil from which they draw the nutrients, you have healthier plants. If the animals and the humans that eat those plants are eating healthier plants, well, you have healthy humans and animals. And so when we eat animals that are raised in this kind of concentrated feeding industrial farm like
Correct.
setting, we're actually eating unhealthy, inflamed animals. In fact, those animals are very much a mirror of the American population at this point, where we've become just increasingly unhealthy with, that's all right.
Sorry.
And even the farmer gets phone calls, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you think about it, we have become a very chronically diseased population here in the United States. We have the highest chronic disease burden in the world, and that goes along with a huge rate of overweight and obesity and all of the inflammatory conditions that go with it. And while we can't pin it 100% to food, food is one of the largest, if not the largest factor in that. But then you think about it, we're taking these cows and these chickens and these turkeys and whatnot, and we are feeding them essentially an animal version of an American diet, of a standard American diet. It's foods they're not evolved to eat. It's processed foods, and then because they get sick, we have to give them antibiotics, and we have to, you know, give them steroid hormones and whatnot. And so when you eat that meat or those eggs or that milk,
It's a reflection in your body.
exactly, you're eating chronically ill animals.
And the human body is an amazing organism. I mean, it can take a lot of abuse.
It sure can.
It's amazing.
For better and for worse, which is why we all abuse ourselves so much, because, you know,
It's
it
amazing.
takes years to get sick. And the reason it takes years to get sick is not because it's years later that we start doing the wrong stuff. It's because the body actually works and functions despite the fact that we're not caring for it properly for years before it gets sick. So, you know, kind of in starting to wrap up our conversation here.
We could go on for hours.
Yeah, we could go on for hours, and we'll do this again and maybe
Sure.
get into some specific topics.
Or have your fan base give us some questions.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. So, one thing I wanted to ask you before we close, and we'll take a look at the box as well, is why would someone consider purchasing a farm box from Riva Farms? What makes it different, special?
Well, not only is it a great economic buy, you're getting probably 2 weeks worth of food for about $35. Remember the freshness, nutrient dense, and then flavors. The really great thing about nutrient dense food, it's very flavorful. And ask yourself, why do you eat?
Right, so when food is really robust in flavor, meaning plain, just as it is, like think about a tomato that you took right out of your garden versus tomato that you buy in the grocery store. The tomato in the grocery store has very little taste, barely tastes like a tomato. A tomato that you get out of a garden that's a healthy garden, you can eat like a piece of fruit. You could eat it straight, it's so flavorful. But what you're saying is that's a reflection of the nutrients.
Right.
If it's got all that deep flavor, it's also more nutrient dense and therefore better for you.
You bet. Sugar is sweeter, the bitters are bitterer, and then you've got that whole multitude of different flavors. You know, sweet, savory, salty, whatever you fall in love with. And you know, if you eat a lot of leafy greens, you can eat your animal foods too, but you know, plant-based is really the healthiest way to live, and it's the easiest for us to grow. Anybody can do what I do in their backyard on a smaller scale. It's not that hard.
It's a great topic for another day, because
Yeah.
I'm super fascinated about that. But I mean, generally, if you decide to get a farm box from Riva Farms, you're getting, you know, depending on how many people in your family, you know, in my house, it lasts a week. But we go through quite a few vegetables. I myself personally can go through a lot of vegetables. But it's amazing, it's delicious. For $36, you know, we get all these vegetables for the week, so it's a great deal. But it is also, it's fresh to a degree you cannot duplicate unless you're growing it in your backyard and pulling it in the day that you eat it. It hasn't traveled, you know, thousands of miles. It's traveled, I don't know what, maybe 50 miles from
For here,
Santan Valley to get to us where we're at. And so it's having less of an impact on the planet because it's just Mark and his truck driving over from Santan Valley. and it is nutrient dense. It's been grown in healthy soil. It's been grown in soil that Mark is constantly trying to make healthier. Basically, the whole point of regenerative agriculture is to build healthy soil, and everything else kind of takes care of itself.
All
right?
small farmers, I mean, the longer they have their property, the better and better that soil gets. So when you get those
Amazing.
40, 50-year-old properties that have that gorgeous soil that have been rebuilt over and over and over again, and you know, they could just throw seeds on the ground and let it rock.
And this is really amazing because this is different than what's going on worldwide. Right? Worldwide, we've lost something like certainly more than half of all the topsoil that originally existed on the planet. I can't remember the exact estimates of what that is, but you know, the United Nations put out a report not long ago that said that we may only have up to 60 harvests left if we continue to use conventional agriculture methods, because in conventional agriculture we are losing topsoil with every harvest. We're losing topsoil. With regenerative agriculture, with every harvest we're building topsoil.
And carbon seems to be the new topic, the exact same way too. We can sequester way more carbon if we're using the regenerative methods. So there's some really great videos out. Kiss the Ground is one of them.
Great.
Yeah, that everybody should view.
Need to Grow is another another good one.
Fantastic fungi. So yeah, just do your homework. If this interests you and you want to get healthy, we'll get you a farm box and come by the farm. You can come by every Saturday, any Saturday morning. You can take a tour. We have tours once a month. That gives you a couple hours with me to walk around. You can ask questions on what's going on, or how we do it, why we do it. Most people think we're kind of crazy in the way that we farm, but when you see what we're doing, and if you like the way it looks, then maybe we aren't too crazy.
So pretty amazing. Here we have a tiny, like 3.3 acre farm.
Yeah.
That's growing 180 different species of foods, you know, vegetable and animal, and that is building the soil as opposed to deteriorating the soil, producing incredibly nutrient-dense food, retaining water, right? Because that healthy soil holds water, so it makes your crops more drought-resistant than would otherwise be the case, which is especially important here in Arizona. And then the last thing you said, which could be a whole nother video and topic, is the environmental impact of farming this way, because instead of releasing carbon into the atmosphere, causing all kinds of problems and greenhouse gases and climate change and whatnot, regenerative agriculture is sequestering carbon from the atmosphere into the soil, and the soil holds a whole hell of a lot of carbon. And on top of that, that carbon plays a positive role in the soil, because in the soil, right, it feeds the microbes.
The mycorrhizal fungi, it feeds everything.
And it's part of how we get that nutrients up
feeds
into our
us.
plant, right? And it feeds us. So
Yeah.
It's a really important life cycle. So in any case, I want anyone who's stayed with us this long and watched the video to really consider, if you haven't tried a farm box at Riba Farms, really consider it. Like I said, short of growing in your own backyard, you can't walk into any grocery store and get this food, not this nutrient density, not this quality of food, not this freshness of food, and it's local and it hasn't traveled very far, so it has so many benefits. And
another point that I did want to mention, Doctor, is that our box is an a la carte box. So we're not asking you to subscribe weekly, asking you for $400 up front like a typical CSA. Our boxes are set, you just order them online when you want them. So if your family is smaller and it takes you 2 or 3 weeks to get through a box, we'll still always be there to get you a new box. But there is no big upfront capital investment. The CSA model, when it was originally invented, I guess, really helped the farmers in a lot of ways, because it gave them the ability. People would buy like a subscription in the farm. It would give them $2,000 or $3,000 to get the season started with, so they could get their seeds, they could get all their equipment fixed so that they could plant, and then share that food with you throughout the season. We've been so blessed that we don't need to do that. So I just ask you buy a box when you need it. We've got 5 or 6 different locations. We'll expand as people catch on, and we'll drive farther if that's what the need be. But check out the ribafarms.com on the website and see if we can get a farm box in your front door.
And I might add that part of the reason that you can sell the farm box for $36 is because we're cutting out the middleman. The money's going straight to the people who are growing the food, and so it actually keeps the costs low. So it puts more money in our farmer's pocket, and it keeps the cost to us low. So it's really a great symbiotic kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling kind of punk, talk to this guy. He'll fix you right up.
Yeah, there you go. And I can tell you what, eating this kind of food on a regular basis you will require a lot less doctoring. That's for sure. So last thing we'll do is let's take a look at this week's box. So this is my box for the week. We'll open it up and we'll see if I can identify what we're eating this week. And Mark, you can give us any insight or whatnot. Maybe what I'll do is I'll pull the box to the side.
You want me to hold it down here, Tom?
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
And so you basically get a sheet that tells you what's in it, and which sometimes helpful because when it's a variety you're not familiar with, then you're otherwise guessing. So let's see what we got. So this looks like
that's the Rabba Rhapsody. That's the salad mix.
Oh, great. So this will get eaten very quickly in my house. And now we have...
This is Medusa mushrooms. This is actually the primordial root of a mushroom. Has a very nice chicken lobster type texture. Lasts a long time in your refrigerator. You cook it just like a normal mushroom. You put it in any of the dishes, and you'll really love the tenderness of
mushrooms
this
are
mushroom.
really good, by the way. So here we have edible flowers. I don't know what variety.
This happens to be hollyhock.
So hollyhock.
Many people didn't know hollyhock. You could eat the flower. There's tons of edible flowers out there, and I've always get asked, what's the nutritional value of a flower? And I don't know.
I don't know either.
They taste good.
I wonder, but
they look good and they taste
They
good.
do. I just think that they're the coolest thing. Like if you want presentation for your plate.
Yeah.
To stick a couple flowers on it, it just makes it
Or
beautiful.
a cake or cupcakes.
Absolutely.
Live, edible flowers on any of your desserts.
And it's just fun to eat a flower.
It is.
It
It's
really
really
is.
fun.
All right, so now we're going to dig into our bag here, and it looks like spinach.
Yep.
It's a beautiful, fresh spinach. This looks like parsley.
Ooh, yep.
Beautiful
Smell
parsley.
that. Yeah.
I have this growing in my little herb garden. The parsley's fantastic. A thing about herbs, they're very, very nutrient dense, even more than the vegetables we normally eat, which is why just a little bit, like we use to flavor something, actually goes a long way. So there's all kinds of stuff. You could just put a sprig of this on top of any of your meal as a garnish and eat it, and you're getting more nutrients in you. We got some pea shoots.
Yep. Microgreen pea shoots.
All right. These are my favorite on top of the salad.
Yeah, nice and sweet, sugar sweet.
And then this looks like a kale variety.
It is a kale. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, all right, these are amazing. We in my house, we've been gobbling these things up.
Those are called mukums.
Mukum carrots.
Yeah, it's actually a Japanese breed that, and they carry sugar very well.
These are delicious.
Yep.
They're really good. My 11-year-old really likes
Now
these
we've got,
carrots.
if you have a carrot top recipe, go to Rival Recipes. There's a couple of them on there.
Yeah, and
so you don't have to throw that away.
These carrot greens are really full of nutrients. They're especially really rich in the vitamin A compounds. So these should not be wasted. I actually will sometimes saute them up, and I really like them. They have like a chewiness, kind of a crunch to them, and a good flavor. And if I don't eat them, the dog eats them. You may all not know this, but it's probably not surprising that my dog also eats a kind of whole foods raw diet, and I grind up these greens and put it in his food, and he gobbles them up, and he's healthy as they come. Just a radish? Or
That
a
is a turnip. That's the salad turnips.
Oh, so these
Kukurai.
are really small turnips.
Yeah, these are the babies. They'll get bigger.
Okay.
They'll get to the size of about a baseball.
Okay, earlier in the season we had
Yeah.
some other turnips that were that big.
Yeah, those are the red tops, yes.
And again, the turnip greens, don't throw them out. These are delicious. You can eat them raw, like you could add them to salad, or you could saute them up, put them in a soup. These are also, don't throw those out. And then, last but not least, right? We've got.
Look at the size of those boys.
Look at these beets. Oh my God. Beautiful beets. We've been getting great beets all this season, golden beets and different red beets. So these are amazing. And again, the greens, they come with the greens instead of just getting the beet.
Right.
The nutrients that are in these greens is unbelievable.
That's
And
a solar panel.
in fact, there's a website called, I think it's called SF. Oh, I'm spacing on it. It's not SF Gate, but it's SF something. But nonetheless, it's a nutritional website, and they look at nutritional density, and they give you lots of information about different foods. And they list beet greens on a nutrient per calorie basis as one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. And again, these are great raw in a salad, and they're delicious sauteed. They're a lot like chard. I think
Yes,
they're
very, very
related
similar.
to chard. So,
And you can juice too. You can juice the greens and the root.
So I mean,
You can drink them.
look at this. This is a full box. This is, $36. This, oh, we're missing one yummy thing. Look at
Yeah.
this. And a dozen eggs. So,
And I can assure you our chickens are fed real food.
look at that. Beautiful brown eggs. And so, same thing. When we got, regeneratively raised chickens, then we have much healthier chicken eggs. And so you can feel really good about eating these chicken eggs. And they're beautiful. When you crack them open, the yolk is just brightly colored. And if you took those next to a regular grocery store egg and just cracked them each side by side, you wouldn't even think you were looking at the same thing. So, well, thanks, Mark. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the
Doc.
box. You're
It's a
welcome.
pleasure.
Absolutely. So get yourself a farm box. All you have to do is visit the website, ribafarms.com, click on Farm Box, and pick your location. So Arizona Natural Health Center is a drop-off location. So if you're near us in Central Phoenix, you can order through us. But the important thing is that you get yourself a box. So there's a number of locations. Find the location closest to you. And if you like just actually picking stuff for yourself, every Saturday morning, the Gilbert Farmers Market.
Gilbert Farmers Market
Or straight out at the farm, right?
Yeah, or out at the farm stand.
All right. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
And we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
That was fun.